We are rejoined by BJ, who has
Hello.
returned to
I'm
help us sift through this trash fire.
yes.
And we're joined by a familiar name, but new guest. It's
What up?
Peter. Peter's our Twitch mod. Peter is also one of our. Well, you're like a regular. You're a regular.
Yeah.
Um, but I invited because we never announced that you would be here with us because it was kind of a last minute thing on your Twitch channel. And if you want, throw that in the chat. By the way, in your Twitch channel, you did a reading of Swords of the Daimyo, which is an Oriental Adventures adventure.
First one they did.
First one they
It
did, and
was
it's bad.
it was a
Mhm.
time.
It's
I have mad kudos and respect for you going 4
he was
hours
4 hours.
by yourself. Ooh.
It was and I'm not done yet. I'm doing it again on Monday.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah. So Steve and I subject ourselves to this once a week. Peter, you do, but it's only 2 hours a week. Peter, you do it 4 hours. So you got like mad props, first of all, for being able to do that. But after you did that stream, you were talking to me about, because we were playing League. We were probably playing League or something. You were telling me that you did a lot of research into each of these creatures because you weren't very familiar with Japanese monsters.
Yeah.
And you learned a whole lot about them through that stream. So I was like, well, you got to join us for when we read the monster chapter. So that's what's up. We got you. You've also published a ton of stuff on DM's Guild.
Yes.
So like, to throw those in the chat as well, or just
That one's a hard link to find
okay. So people can just search Peter Cargill on
DM's Guild. Yeah.
DM's Guild.
I mean, at worst, all my links are on my Twitch page,
Boom, right
so
there.
so everything's on that page.
And people are always like, well, we can't. Well, like, Asians represent. Why don't you read this and this and this? I'm like, have you seen how long it's taken Steve and I to read one book?
I love though that everyone's like, you should really read this. Because every time someone says you should read this, I read that as this hurt me really much. And I would love to like one, get some validation, and two, you guys are experts in this. Like you do this a lot, you have experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to have some words. I'd like you to like give us some words that we can then use to move forward through it. And that's vocalizing and like giving words to like your feelings is totally part of like the healing process.
Totally. And like we heard you, and we're going to be doing more of this, involving more people, covering more topics. So first announcement of the day, we're actually doing a reading of Al-Qadim. We're finally doing a reading of Al-Qadim. Yeah, it's going to be sweet. We're doing a reading of Al-Qadim next Saturday at noon EST. We're going to read through Al-Qadim. I'm not going to be facilitating because it is not my place to facilitate that. I'm just going to be on the production side. And Amar Waleed, Dungeons and Agents, is going to be doing the facilitating. Iza is going to be returning. She was our resident costume design expert during our 3.5 art read-through. And we have Amr joining us. And we have Ahmed, who is D20 Arabia on Twitter. So it's going to be a dope one. On the 20th at noon EST, we're going to read through for 2 hours Al-Qadim. Consider it a pilot. Following that, we haven't set a date yet, but I know, BJ, you were in the conversation when we were talking about this. There was an OSR book.
Oh, yes. I know this one.
There's an OSR book written by Kenneth Haidt called Kelong, and it's supposed to be Southeast Asian inspired. And it was recently reviewed. It's an older book. I think it was written in 2015, and it was recently reviewed by Questing Beast on YouTube. So that's how I found out about it. And well, apparently it's some shit. So we're gonna read that one, and we're gonna assemble the RPGC group, and we're gonna talk about that one. So we're doing more. We're doing more.
We're doing so much. I feel like I blinked, and Daniel, you had like all these things like just like you cast these nets, and I'm really excited. This is really
Producer
really good.
Daniel.
Oh, you're killing it, man. I love the
Producer
stuff you do.
Speaking of loving what we do, our charity stream was like a huge success. As you could all see, my hair is gone. I shaved my hair. It's my long locks are gone. Um, I'm gonna order like a special like razor so I could do the eyebrow thing. I haven't forgotten. And Steve and I are looking at some cargo short art, and Steve's getting some cargo short art done.
Steve's getting some cargo short art done.
Now, that being said, somebody actually volunteered to do some cargo short art.
Okay.
And I'm going to throw that up. Sorry I can't share it with you folks, but those of you who are on stream will see the amazing cargo short art that Mia Mercury did for us.
Oh my fuck.
So Mia...
It looks amazing.
So Mia messaged me on Twitter and was like, hey, can I do this for free? And I'm like, I'll pay you. Dude, she's like, no. I just want to do this. And now we've got this amazing piece. I'm going to consider it the first piece of Asians Read fan art. And it's perfect. It's perfect. I absolutely love it. I also love how the tank top actually says hype on it, because Steve is hyped for cargo shorts.
Oh, it hurts. I can feel that. Like, first of all, it's amazing art. I love it.
It's amazing art, and it's my new hair too, so it's the most up to date art we have.
Wow, this got the turnaround on this was fast too.
Yeah.
Mia, you do amazing work.
I've been holding on to this for like a couple days, and I'm like,
what? It's been.
I'm gonna. Well, Mia actually was like, messaged me. I was like, oh, I heard that you. I saw that Steve was commissioning a piece. Do you want to hold off? I'm like, no. It's okay. I want to show this to Steve on stream this Friday, because it's a special moment. So yeah, those are the cargo shorts. Remember this. The next thing is we are actually getting, Steve and I are getting a member of our community to do some emotes for us for Twitch.
Yeah.
Steve, do you want to talk about what we need from our audience?
Absolutely. So Daniel and I have 3 emotes that we are going to have for the channel. One of them is a secret, but the other 2 you can probably guess. We're going to take those faces that we got for our like new splash, our kind of like pensive, like, we need to talk about this. Those kind of faces, you know what I'm talking about. We're gonna make those emotes. It's gonna be amazing. My artist is actually in chat, so
yeah. Secret.
But what we're struggling with, Daniel and I want to talk about was, we want the third secret one to be a tier subscription kind of one, and then of our 2 faces, one of them we're just gonna make free. You can just use it if you're in chat, no cost whatsoever. You just gotta be here and you can use it. But the question is, whose face should be the free one? Is it Daniel or is it Steve? I don't know how we're going to collect this information. I figure some people in chat are probably going to jump and be like, oh yeah, this is the face of like everyone. It should be accessible. Everyone should have access to that. This other one is premium face. So we'll let people.
So what is it going to be? So just like type in the chat. Is it going to be me? So type Daniel, or is it going to be Steve? Doesn't matter. We're both like, we'll leave it to the audience. So we could do, you know what? Twitter poll. Let's just do a Twitter poll, Steve.
Let's do a Twitter poll, yeah. Otherwise, we have to like go through it and like
go through. Yeah. Okay. Twitter poll. That's how it's going to be.
Smart.
But that's not us. It's the audience. So yeah, that's it for like news and stuff like that. I really wanted to see Steve's reaction to that piece of art, and
I had a reaction
at its splendor. So let's move on and let's get into monsters. I think it's really important for us to all define what it is. Well, what is a monster? What is a monster to us, and how does a monster exist in our minds in the Asian world? Right? We did this, and I'm kind of modeling what Jess did during our martial arts episodes, and it's like, well, okay, let's define martial arts. So for us, I want to say, well, what is a monster to us? And I could start with myself. Because monsters in Chinese culture are very different from the way we conceive of monsters in Europe and in the West. They're very different from the way we conceive of monsters even in D&D. Monsters are obviously like supernatural or supranatural entities that exist beyond the control and understanding of humanity. Okay, so in Chinese history, there are a lot of historical texts that are actually ancient bestiaries, but they're treated as more nature books, books of, I would say, scholarly books on the world outside of, city walls, the world beyond the charted lands. And often monsters were people's newfound understanding of real life animals. So in China, monsters exist in the same lived realm of existence as humanity. So you're not going to get like dimension hopping monsters. You're not going to get any of that. All of the monsters live in the same plane of existence as humans. And so they are all things that people may encounter in their everyday lives, depending on where they are. So monsters are actually beings and entities that people who spend time outside of the cities might actually have to understand if they are to venture out and be safe. Hence the need for historical texts that are actually bestiaries. So for me, a monster in Asia, in the Chinese context, is something that exists outside of human understanding. And there are ways of putting that into context. So how about the rest of you?
Oh, I can go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
BJ.
All right. For me, in the Filipino context, because that's where I'm from, our monsters are called the aswang. That's pretty much a one-to-one correspondence, one-to-one connection with monsters. But if you look at a lot of RPG texts that are based on Filipino myths, aswang is a very specific type of monster. So it actually kind of defies categorization in the D&D sense, because you would find vampiric like creatures there, you would find ghoulish like creatures, shapeshifters, and a lot of other things, but they're all aswang. What makes the aswang an aswang is that they are still within the realm of maybe they're human, but they are humans in the worst way. So in the Filipino context, this is a monster is a person who is not acting in accordance with society. So, for example, cannibalism is a very big no-no in the Philippines. I don't know why the ancestors feared it in particular, but it's a lot of the aswang are cannibals, and then a lot of our monsters are also um, tropes on sexism, unfortunately, and things that people think are outside the norm. So if you are a deviant in your personality type, unfortunately, you get typed into a monster, so that when they suspect you, that's one way to get rid of you almost immediately, to ostracize you from society. So there's a dark aspect to it, really. um, but also in it translates to the modern times, wherein now we use aswang as a term for, well, um, for our politicians, for example, that we don't
Oh,
like. So
oh, shit.
it gets used up to now to, you are actively endangering our society, for example, and now you are labeled an aswang, and you are given those visual aspects of the monster. So a monster to us is someone who is out of the norm, and someone who makes you think twice, why is this person acting strange? So there's a lot to unpack there. I'm not saying it's supposed to be that way. I think there is a lot of leeway to evolve past that, but that is at the core what a monster is to us.
Oh, damn. How about you, Peter or Steve?
I mean, my background is more like like literary or philosophical in nature. So to me, a monster, when I read that word, the first image that comes to my head is more like a cryptid sort of situation. So like um so like the creature you put up on your Patreon, the Tautier,
Yeah.
like that's a good example of a monster, or even um like werewolves. Those are all monsters to me because they exist outside of the realm of what can be, and they're designed to be terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
So things that are more fantastical, like unicorns or Chilin, I don't really see those as monsters per se. Um, so it's kind of interesting that Gygax uses the word monster, and I think that's a D&D thing in general. So you have like the monster manual instead of like the bestiary, which
Yeah.
may be a better term for what it really is. Because I mean, even the bear is under the monster manual. I wouldn't really call a bear a monster.
Yeah, I think there's supposed to be things that act antagonistically towards the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I think is kind of what they're going for.
Yeah, it's things that the heroes can fight.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
I'm glad I get to go last because like even during that my thinking has changed a little bit. So when you first asked the question, the very first thing that came to my mind was like horror, like fear and being scared and things like that. And I love horror. I love horror as a genre. And for me, horror really connects when the horror can be placed within social inequalities. Most horror, generally, the stuff I really like, is entrenched in social inequalities. When you have Dracula, that is like thinly veiled, like otherism and like the fear of that, or like body snatchers, or zombies being the fear of like, technology won't help us, right? Like that kind of stuff. That really gets me. I like that a lot.
So they're like analogs for vices and virtues.
Yep. So I love that. I don't know if we're going to see much of that here. I can hope. The second one, that when I hear monsters, I hear just like physical scariness, big teeth, big claws. These are all scary things, things that could like really, really hurt you. I think I'm going to see a lot of that, but I'm also curious to see kind of like what harm Gygax and team thought the Orient could cause to people. So like specifically, what do Oriental monsters do to hurt you? And I don't think I'm going to like what I see.
That's interesting that you say that because I mean in China, monsters aren't supposed to, and they're very much in line with what Peter and I kind of described as monstrous, beyond the realm of current human comprehension. Monsters in China don't actually represent specific virtues. Some of them can be associated with them, but they aren't representative of that. So that's really interesting that you bring that up. But in the Philippines, like BJ said, they are very much tied to bad things that humans can do, which is, I guess, why aswang is still used to describe like politicians, which is crazy to me. So let's get into it. I actually, this is the first time I've had some tabs open on this one page, mostly because I knew that's either myself or Peter might bring up the Taotie. But I was gonna bring that up when we get to some of the monsters here on the list. So we're gonna have to wait. So let's start reading. The lands of Karatur are vast and varied in both climate and geography. Within the near boundless spaces of the continent exists virtually every type of geographic condition known. This sentence is just like, in Karatur, there is weather. These conditions provide a wide range of habitats for both normal and fantastic creatures. Many are common throughout the world: deer, oxen, rabbits, horses, foxes, hobgoblins, ogres, and giants. Yet others are unique to the lands of Karatur: pandas, tengu, oni, and water buffalo.
The mystical water buffalo.
The mystical water buffalo, even though you could find water buffalo. That was my Google Home going off. You can, even though you can find water buffalo in other parts of the world. Where were we? Oh yeah. Creatures common to other parts of the world have never made their appearance in Karatur, held at bay by stormy oceans, grim mountain ranges, and scalding deserts. Now, go ahead, because I have shit to say. I have shit to
No,
say.
the fact that they never made their appearance, we get this like unapproachable east situation. Just like, oh yeah, no one ever goes here. Like, why would you want to unless you're here for like the exotic factor and bleh.
Or treasure.
If
Yeah,
you're here for treasure, but it reinforces this idea that nobody would want to come to the East, right? It's like in a land with such incredible technology and magic, how could nobody have never come here? It doesn't make sense.
So in Swords of the Daimyo, the first adventure is actually taking your adventurers from Faerun and putting them in Karatur. And they explain that. They say, listen, nobody has gone there because it's dangerous. It's, there's pirates that you need to worry about. There's all of these dangers between here and there that just make it not worth it. And then they even have one point where they're like, the adventurers may say something like, oh, nobody could ever go that far. They'd fall off the face of the earth.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's an interesting thing because so many Chinese monsters are associated with the introduction of new creatures. Like, I think in the Ming Dynasty, there's a really famous piece of art of of a giraffe being brought in from Africa. And obviously giraffes have little horns, and the idea of the giraffe in China actually inspired a lot of tales of monsters like the Qilin or the Kirin in Japan. So the fact that they say that, like, they're further reinforcing this idea that Karatur, this vast Asia, has basically sealed itself off to the outside because of how treacherous, dangerous, and primitive it is. That I don't like. Also, how they're like, okay, what's the most Asian animals we could pick? Pandas, water buffalo. I don't get it.
I want to comment that we don't actually have foxes here.
Yeah, and foxes are really important in multiple. Well, you don't have. Oh yeah, I mean foxes are really important in China.
Japan as well.
In the Philippines, I suppose it's because we're an island. There's a lot of animals that don't get here unless they're imported. Like, for example, horses are actually not endemic to us. Mention of horses prior to the arrival of the Spanish were mostly contained in the Mindanao region because they had trading connections with South Asia who had horses.
Mm-hmm.
But the upper two major regions, Luzon and Visayas, they don't have horses, which is interesting because we have a horse-like monster called the tikbalang. And if one looks into that particular monster and you go beyond the Spanish influence, the tikbalang existed prior to the arrival of the Spanish, but before then they weren't horses. So it's one of those interesting tidbits. I don't know why I mentioned that though.
That's interesting.
I suppose
there are some really cool horses in Chinese monsters that are horse-like that I don't see on this table here. Because I mean, if we look at all of the climate groupings and creatures from previous books,
mm-hmm.
I mean, they do say that there are creatures from previous books that they've put in here because they couldn't possibly go through the countless historical texts to put real ones in here. But there's this Chinese horse called the Boma, and it's a horse without hooves. Instead of hooves, it's got tiger claws. It's got like tiger's paws, and it's got tiger's teeth.
Damn.
And yeah, I've been writing this thing on my Patreon, and I just did a post on horses. And literally, this creature is a horse tiger, and it's supposed to be auspicious. It's supposed to be a good sign for war. And these creatures actually eat tigers. They are the apex predator instead of the big cats. Yeah, there's some
Cool.
crazy shit. But do y'all have anything to say about like creatures from previous books, or should we go to the next page?
Yeah,
Um,
I quickly glanced through. I don't see anything. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
sorry, I just want to say I find it really weird that the climate groups don't have deserts.
Yeah, even though they talk about scalding deserts, because nothing can live in a desert. Apparently,
Nothing could live in a desert ever.
Or maybe it's on
Alkadeem's
another
monster
source
manual
book
is gonna be
called
gone.
Alkadeem.
maybe. Oh.
My God.
Wow, that's a zinger right there, if there ever was one. Wow. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the Celestial Emperor and the Celestial Bureaucracy. Unlike the Western world, which has always tended to view non-human creatures as a loose connection of beings with no unity or cohesion, the Oriental mind has organized the world into a unified whole. That's
I don't even know what that sentence is trying to say.
well,
My Oriental mind is confused.
the what the I think it's supposed to be Asian people categorize the world and are highly analytical. That's the first thing that came to my mind. I'm like, oh, so all Asians are really good at organizing things in their brains.
I actually feel like it's the reverse. That
I think so too.
the Western conception of monsters likes to categorize them into like demons or this one is a spirit, this one is an undead, this one is a ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
we don't
things
do
like
that.
Whereas I suppose what he's trying to say is that we mix them all together. Is that what he's trying to say?
I
I'm
think
not
It
it's-
does
sure.
I
kind
think
of sound
you're
like that,
giving
where
the-
it's like, no, it does kind of sound like, it says the Western world views non-human creatures as a loose collection of beings, which means that there is still like categorization that exists, whereas the Oriental mind has organized the world into a unified whole, in that there's one world, and every creature exists in this world in harmony.
Harmony. I think it's just a bad sentence.
It's
Yes.
the worst.
It's bad.
Moving on.
One particularly strong belief is that the Celestial Emperor, a powerful being who heads the celestial bureaucracy, a type of government of the spirits. Okay. Many of the spirit creatures described in this section come under his command, and many hold. Okay, I got thoughts, but I'll say it after. Hold offices or positions within the celestial bureaucracy. Here they receive and carry out orders, punish the wicked, and file reports of their activities. Thus, the Changlong, river dragon, have been given the duty of making rain and report to the Ministry of Thunder, who turn reports to the Celestial Emperor. Like the bureaucrats of the real world, these spirit officials can be corrupt, disobedient, or just incompetent. They can also be replaced, since each year their activities and behavior are examined by their superiors. I feel like I mean, I know what they're trying to talk about. I get what they're trying to say. In my mind, they're drawing very heavily from Chinese mythology.
Mm-hmm. No, I was getting that same feeling with like the Jade Emperor.
Yeah, exactly, with the Jade Emperor. But the thing is, on the previous page, they've talked about how they've included monsters from other D&D books that don't necessarily fall under the celestial bureaucracy. So if they're going to put the effort into writing about the celestial bureaucracy because they're doing it clearly for flavor rather than context, why include monsters that don't fall under this? That's what I don't get. But this is like the first time they've basically gone and been like, okay, this is China now and not Japan. Because everything before this was basically Japan.
Don't worry, they go back to that in a second.
Yeah, the bakemono.
The thing that I'm getting from here, it took me a while to like kind of internalize this, but the idea that the Celestial Emperor is clearly like a divine thing, right? Like clearly there to like command and like be there as something that's divine. At least how I read this. It's in the monster section. Most D&D books have like a deities section. Oriental Adventure doesn't. It only has the monsters. So when you take what, again, is like the Jade Emperor, right? Not having in like a divine section, but in a monster section is like, why did you do that? You didn't have to.
Well, because they don't want to do Oriental deities and demigods.
Okay, great.
That's exactly it. It doesn't fit within their existing framework because they didn't want to make, a new one.
Yeah, it doesn't fit in the framework because if they were seen as deities and demigods, then it'd be that much harder to dethrone them and feel good about it.
Yeah, they kind of put them on a sort of lesser platform, but also they don't want them compared to, the Greek gods and all of the other stuff.
Yeah. Anyways.
It's interesting. So do we want to... Oh, come on. They put a carp in there.
A giant carp.
I'm excited for that. Like, giant carp. Like, let's see how that goes.
See, I'm waiting to get to Oriental dragons.
I wanna pass by the buso for a while because that's a Filipino monster.
We're gonna pass by it, or do you want to go to that one right now?
Go to that one rather.
Let's do it.
All right, the buso. I guess messed this up.
That's on page
Is that
117.
the subtitle for this whole series?
Why, Gary?
I see like 4 monsters here that are different. Some are related, but okay, I'm just going to dive right in here. Okay, first of all, the Tigbanwa buso. He splits the buso into 2 monsters, the Tigbanwa and the Tagamaling. The interesting thing about this is that I think he latched on to the idea of the Tigbanwa being a 50% beneficent and 50% maleficent deity.
Okay.
And that's the first thing that I will mention, that he is pulling lore that is supposed to be a deity, and then he turned it into an 8 hit die creature. So
Wow.
that makes a certain amount of sense because that if I remember correctly, the type 6 demon in AD&D, the Balor, is actually only has 8 hit dice. So that's actually in line with where it is. But in 3rd edition, I think they made it into CR3, but somehow retained that flavor wherein they were once one of the most dangerous things in existence. So I don't know how that works.
The Balor was 3rd edition. It was badass.
Yeah, they bumped him up to like CR20, right?
Yeah, it was CR20, and it had a Vorpal sword, and it was sick.
And that's actually something that comes up a lot with monsters that are coming from Asia. Like, I'm going to move out of Oriental Adventures for a while and go to the Naga, which was in the AD&D Monster Manual.
Mm-hmm.
In the AD&D Monster Manual, I think they have 11 or something hit dice, 11 to 12 to 13 hit dice. So they were actually stronger than the Balor. But I don't know what happened in between editions as you move towards the fifth edition. By the time you get to 5th edition, they have been degraded from being demigod-like beings to be like CR10. So,
and the Naga's in 3rd edition as well. They're in the Oriental Adventures 3rd edition book.
Oh.
And they're also in the 3rd edition Monster Manual as well. And the art for it was interesting.
And this particular representation of the buso actually is a bit harmful because he just mixed up a bunch of the Filipino monsters that are not even in the same region. Like, there is mention here of them being let's see, fearsome ghoul-like creatures, normally once friendly and helpful to man. This actually goes to an Isnig monster called the Danag, which used to be a god that went down to Earth and was helpful to man, taught them how to plant and etc. Things like that. And then eventually, one of the mortals injured her finger. And the god, in order to help her, was like, okay, let me suck out the blood that is pouring out. And then once he sucked out the blood from the mortal, he realized that he liked the taste. And that's when he started becoming Maleficent. But even then, it was like 50-50. Half the time he was Maleficent, half the time he was still Beneficent. And somehow he connected this to like, he turned this into like a lycanthrope kind of monster.
It's chaotic evil.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things here.
Well, a
just-
big problem with this is also alignment and the use of alignment
Mhm.
in monsters.
I was just about to comment on that because it's convenient is what it is. If
Mhm.
it's chaotic evil, you don't need to think about its motivation. You don't need to think about why it's doing anything. As a hero, you can just be like, "Oh, this thing is evil. I need to kill it."
Yep.
So yeah, I actually tackled the buso in one of my when I in my indie stuff, and I tried to make it closer to the original folklore of it, because this is the version of the buso that makes it to the third edition Oriental Adventures. So it moves forward. It doesn't get changed unless someone who actually comes from that culture mentions, "Hey, this is not how it's supposed to be."
Oh, damn.
I'm so happy you kind of gave the context of like what the source should be and like how to like do it well with respect to like what the original story was, because I feel like if young Steve was reading this, young Steve not knowing Gygax and like the other harm that maybe is being internalized here would just like take that and be like, oh, I'm talking to this person who's Filipino who mentioned Buso, and I just like put my foot directly in my mouth by talking about like what I read here. And that would be very painful for me and the person I'm talking with, because there'd be so much of a disconnect that we'd have to like work through it. There'd just be pain we have to work through.
Yeah, I didn't even know that they had Southeast Asian monsters in this book, because there's very little mention of anything Southeast Asian up until this point. Like the monster section is the ultimate cherry picking of traits.
They're what we think look cool.
Exactly. Dang. I want to know what are the other Southeast Asian ones. Like, you know what we should do? We should just scroll down and stop when we want to talk about something.
All right.
I know Steve wants to stop on the next page.
I want to talk about some dragons that are of the Orient.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
So I'll let the team also take a look at these other monsters here. They have very interesting names because
what is this one?
They look
Doc Kuok.
I get
Fuck.
those apostrophes.
I know, right?
I see the apostrophes and I think a little bit of the idea of trying to like split up the syllables to like make it easier to read if you're an English speaker. But when I see a lot of like punctuation, things like that, Vietnamese, because of like historical reasons, has a lot of accents and things like that, because you took this language that was very close to Chinese, to Mandarin, and you had to convert it to Romanized alphabet, which was not possible, but you do your best.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a lot of like weird accents, which I think is actually beautiful and fun. But
yeah, I mean, Vietnamese is a very distinct language now.
Yeah. But I'm gonna read
Go for
Oriental Dragons. So most Oriental dragons are officials in the celestial bureaucracy. Each type has been charged with some aspect of the government, as listed below. Once per year, each dragon must go to the celestial palace and file a report of the previous year's activities and events. I laugh because I actually think that's really cool, and I like that as an idea for like a monster. This report is examined by the appropriate censors, and rewards and punishes are handed out accordingly. It is not uncommon for a corrupt or incompetent dragon to be removed from his position and replaced by a new appointee. Such changes in the celestial bureaucracy are made known to humans by dreams, which announce the new official and his arrival of date. We've complained about he pronouns.
Yeah.
Knowing this, the human prepares a ceremonial procession and banquet of offerings to please and curry favor with the new dragon. Huh.
So one of the things that I think is worth noting, and this is like a basic thing that they got right, and it's the dragon's not evil.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, hey, there's Daniel's one good thing that Gygax did, and it's like doing the bare minimum. So the one thing that kind of, in many ways, kind of bores me about the way dragons are portrayed in China in China, like Asian dragons in general are portrayed, is that they have like the richest history in the world, and they're always picked from one point in time. Always picked at one point in time. I actually prepared something really cool because I thought that the listeners might be interested in this. The first one I'm saving for when we get to the ogre. But I want to talk about this that I've just put on screen. So this is a jade ring. It's not meant to be worn on your finger. You can see it's actually got a little thread hole on it. This is a Neolithic jade ring. This is about 6,000 to 7,000 years old. And that's a dragon. That's a dragon from the Hongshan culture. So the Hongshan culture existed about 7,000 years ago. And they occupied a very small region of China that is like very, very north. Perhaps one of the most northeastern Neolithic, so Stone Age, Chinese cultures. So that's one of the early dragons, and archaeologists call them pig dragons. Not because they're associated with the pigs that the Chinese people ate, like, in the present, but because of their association with wild boars, which are very fearsome creatures. Like, they'll kill you. So we have this dragon that is associated with a very fearsome mammal. Okay. Here's another one. So this is another kind of Hongshan dragon. This is another jade ring. Once again, you have something that doesn't look necessarily reptilian. Starting to get there, it's got like that snake-like sort of imagery, but this is still considered a pig dragon, right? Then we move into something that's really cool, and this is the kind of shit you don't see in D&D. And this is my gripe with dragons in Asia. They always associate dragons with serving the rich, with serving the elite, and of course, serving the gods. But in the Neolithic, in times when societies were generally socially stratified or fairly egalitarian, you might have some leaders who took the form of shamans. Now, a lot of people think, well, shamans are associated with North America, things like that. But in China, they had a long history of shamanism. And a long history of shamanism that I guess you would be in line, or I don't even encourage this, but if you can't conceive of what a shaman is in China, just think of a druid. But they're not. But they never associate that, like the two together, when they talk about Chinese dragons. So this next picture is really, really interesting. Okay, so this is a burial in China at a really famous Yangshao culture site, which was contemporaneous to the Hongshan. Okay, so this site is, I'm not even gonna, this is like a 6,000 to 7,000 year old site. Okay, Shishuipo. Okay, now this site was discovered like a long time ago. And what you see here is what archaeologists believe to be the body of a shaman. Now, what do you see? And if you're in the audience, what do you see next to this skeleton? Ken, contemporaneous means at the same time. Yeah. Those aren't grave goods. So Andreas pointed that out there. Those aren't grave goods. Those are actually shell sculptures. The one on the right side of the image, that's a tiger made of shells. The one on the left side, that's a dragon.
Yeah, I see it.
So I've switched the image now, and that's a dragon. Now take a look at that. This is one of, if not the earliest depiction of a dragon in recorded history. Now, to be buried alongside what is essentially a sculpture or a statue of a dragon and a tiger. What kind of person was that? Right? What kind of position did they occupy in society? And what did the dragon and the tiger mean to them? Were the dragon and tiger protectors of this person? Were they favored servants of this person? We'll never know. But those questions are very, very narratively evocative. But you don't see it.
I like HTTP Paladin's
Yeah, it was an
answer.
actual dragon, and that's just
They
the
were just his
remains.
pets. The actual dragon and the tiger were just next to him.
Yeah. So like, but you don't see that when people talk about dragons in like Oriental Adventures. They're just these like godlike creatures that control weather and shit. Like this is what I want to see. Like I want to see the dragon be more than just an imperial symbol. Rant over.
This is blowing my mind.
Rant
I love
over.
this.
Um,
I really enjoy archaeological digs and seeing and speculating what that means. Because with pre-colonial Filipino culture, that's pretty much all you can do because the Spanish pretty much destroyed
yep.
any records that we kept, and then and so the best we can do is look at these dig sites and then try to piece it together with nearby cultures in Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and try to integrate them together into what our lives were like. So I really enjoy looking at these things also.
I loved how you took this idea of like the dragon and you really connected it to like the human condition, right? Because the questions you asked are very human questions, if I can like use that turn of
Totally.
phrase. I, being vulnerable here, have never run a dragon in Dungeons and Dragons ever because I never felt comfortable doing it because of like the mythology around it. A Western dragon is impossibly smart, impossibly greedy, impossibly powerful, and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable like doing that story. I don't think I can run it. But if the dragon itself is just this wide spectrum of like stories you can tell, and here's a couple examples that are very connected to humanity. I can tell human stories. I'm actually I don't know if you know this, I'm very good at telling human stories. So that is really cool. And it makes me so sad because like what a missed opportunity to take this idea and just kind of like wave your hands, be like, no, they go to they file their Oriental dragon report every year.
Don't worry, I got this. It's already happening. For 5
I
years.
actually want to go back to the Dakuwok because there's something you said earlier, Daniel, where you said like in Chinese myth, the monsters exist on the material plane. Like, they exist on the same plane as us. In the second column, the first paragraph that starts there, it says the lair of the Dakuwok is never found on the prime material plane. Instead, it forms a lair somewhere on the astral plane, returning to it only occasionally, and it kind of acts as a guardian for villages, like a local countryside.
Yeah, and again, this like immediately when I saw that name, I thought, wait, is this Vietnamese? Just the way it was written.
I looked it up, and the art for it is not that great.
I know we've mentioned this already, but I am randomly annoyed that they had an entire monster section without art.
That's the funny thing, because the art that I found was from AD&D. I don't know where it came from though.
Oh, this art. That's from the 3rd edition Oriental Adventures book. Oh, that creature.
No,
that's probably.
there's
I see. Yeah.
You can see like 2nd edition on the top.
Yeah, totally. I'm looking at here. I'll throw it in the chat for folks. Yeah, I don't know what book that's from. Oh, you know what? It looks like it might be from Dungeon Magazine.
Oh, maybe.
Looks like there was an adventure in Dungeon Magazine.
But yeah, you see what I mean by the art is kind of rough.
Yeah, and I mean if you look behind it, there's there's literally a straw hut behind it in that image. There's a full-on straw hut. Here, I'll put this over here. Oh, that doesn't make it any better. There's a full-on straw hut behind this like character, and it's like, why did you put that there? Right? Why is it wearing a loincloth?
to show what kind of Asian it's supposed to represent. It's half a man.
Look at its eyes. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie. There are creatures that are like that in Chinese mythology. Creatures with like they only have one leg. There is actually a monstrous fish, and it's like 7 or 8 fish that share one face, and it looks like a fan. And it just exists. They don't write, like Chinese historians and philosophers never wrote anything about them. They just said, hey, there's this fish, and it's like that. And that's it. They never said, oh, it lives in this plane, or it goes after this. Just, it exists. Things happen.
If you go back to the 3E art of that
Yeah.
monster, Dakwak, just to dunk on it just a tiny bit more, take a look at its hat and notice that it could never take the hat off because it's it's like the hat was made around the horn.
Yep.
Anyways.
It's
They were like, "How can you make this? You know
Art
what?
logic.
I like your art, but I'm gonna need it to be slightly more Oriental. Can we get a hat on that?"
no, because it's like, well, we have to put horns there because if it was
You
just
need to
wearing
show
a,
it's a spirit.
well, if it was just wearing a half hat, that would fall off. But the horns secure the half hat in place.
Beautiful, perfect, love it.
Logic.
I like to imagine this person just custom made the hat then. Just went and commissioned like half a hat. I was like, I needed to slide on over the horns.
Oh, do you think that there's like another half of this hat, and maybe there's another Dakwak who has the other half, or all Dakwaks on the left side of a person? Maybe there's like a right side, and if they combine,
They become a real boy.
oh. Okay, so Steve, do you want to talk more about dragons? I did my dragon spiel.
I glanced at the rest, and to be quite honest,
Pretty
it's kind of like boring.
bland.
Like it's okay.
Even
Yeah.
the evil dragon,
Which one is the evil dragon?
the Tun
Tai-
Milong, which
the
is
typhoon.
alignment neutral evil.
Oh man, Peter? Do you want to read this?
Okay. The Tun Milong is a fearsome dragon which dwells in the seas and oceans. However, it is most commonly encountered in the sky along sea coast or far out to sea. It is wingless. The power of flight comes from a magical pearl lodged in its brain. The Celestial Emperor has charged the Tun Milong with the duty of causing destructive typhoons and hurricanes, which ravage the coasts of warmer lands. This is a task they enjoy greatly. Although they are only supposed to act on the orders of the celestial bureaucracy, they have a habit of forgetting this fact, launching into destructive rampages out of sheer maliciousness. Such is their great power that even the Celestial Emperor finds it hard to restrain and punish them. In addition to the standard powers of the Oriental Dragon, the Tun Milong has the power to summon a divine wind, as per the spell, of great strength. The radius of this effect is equal to 5 times the age of the Tun Milong in miles. The power is usable only once per week, but the duration of the effect is 64 hours. The Tun Milong is always at the center of the storm, and it moves along with him as he travels. In combat, should the typhoon power of the Tun Milong be insufficient, it attacks with its claws and bite. It possesses no breath weapon. It is immune to all water and air-based attacks. Nothing conclusive is known of the lairs of the Tun Milong. However, as members of the celestial bureaucracy, they probably maintain palaces appropriate to their station under the sea. Their evil nature makes them unwelcome to the more peaceful and cultured creatures of the sea, and it is likely that their mansions are in remote corners of the ocean. The Tun Milong speak the languages of all sea creatures, the celestial court, and the sea lords.
Wow. There's a question. John asked, aren't they all wingless? No, that's incorrect. There are winged Chinese dragons. One of them is often associated with the King Yu.
Do they all have magical pearls lodged in their brains?
Not like this one, no.
Have wings?
No, the winged dragon Yinglong is really neat because it's associated with like a lot of weather and stuff, and it has like a, I guess what is equivalent to like a demon partner called the. It's gonna come to me. It's a really, really metal sounding name. It'll come back to me. Let's just keep reading, and then I'll probably blurt it out. But yeah, there is a type of Chinese dragon that is a winged dragon. I don't remember what its companion is called, or it's I guess it's contrasted against something. I forget. But anyways, let's continue. Nope. Drought Fury.
Cool.
I think that's it. I had it in my notes for a thing I'm working on. Hold up. But what do we want to stay on dragons, or do we want to continue?
There's like the river dragon and stuff, but I glanced through it and it's like they live in cool houses and things like that. There's some ideas here that I would be like, huh, that's pretty cool. But far and wide, it's just kind of like the dragon has a domain. It's at best kind of boring for me.
Yeah, Drought Fury is like a demon associated with the winged dragon.
Are typhoons in China really associated with dragons? I'm asking. I don't actually know.
Yeah, like natural phenomenon and water, things like that, definitely, and wind for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, they're very magical. Honestly, they make the European dragon look really boring.
I personally find the Tumulong really funny because it's like the Celestial Emperor can't even stop him. But
It's
the
still
more
reports.
peaceful and cultured creatures of the sea make him so unwelcome he doesn't want to live with them. He can't live with them.
Yeah, because there's this, I don't know. That's their attempt at narrative depth.
Typhoons are evil, guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in many ways you could
It's destructive for sure.
they're destructive, but
Mhm.
I mean, often other cultures consider destruction a good thing because it's a resetting of the world. But I mean, I feel like that kind of thinking is too complicated for D&D. That's basically me saying, hey, wizards, maybe there needs to be a destructive event that resets the Forgotten Realms, and you start with all new cultures in a Marvel Comics DC Universe style reboot. But let's continue. Let's continue. There's I want to know if there are other creatures here that are like that are from Southeast Asia. Like, I really want to know because I didn't expect there to be any.
I haven't found any yet.
Goblin
Let me look up.
spider, goblin rat.
They really like their goblins.
They really why?
It's strange to me just to have, like, focus on goblins so much as like creatures, as like an adjective. You
Yeah.
just don't see that in other places in D&D. And just from like glancing at it, I don't see why this is like part of the Oriental Adventures supplement.
Yeah, there's nothing really Asian about this, and that's a shame because they take such extreme efforts to try to make things look and sound Asian, and then when they get to the monsters, the things that would be the easiest to translate over to D&D, they fail so spectacularly because it's just so bland. And just in my head, I said something, and I was like, oh, that's really stupid, because I was like, this is the whitest thing ever. Wait, this is Oriental Adventures.
Maybe that's why they were like, oh, they had like this Oriental rat, and they're like, that's actually really stupid and boring. Let's make it a goblin rat. And then they were like, I guess it's better, and they just like ship it.
I guess that's Oriental.
The goblin rat is like the Henga yokai and is able to turn into either a foul and ugly giant rat or a rat man.
Yeah. It's similar to like rat folk or like lycanthropes with like a rat aspect to it.
I did.
With the traditional like rats are gross and ugly and dirty.
I did like the what was it? The wharf rat from the new Dark Tides of Bilgewater. I feel like the wharf rat was really cool because I like the art because it's basically a shark rat. It was neat. High new aquatic rat.
So I looked at the monsters, and other than the buso, nothing strikes me as Southeast Asian specifically.
Right.
Maybe some of the spirits may tie into similar animist beliefs in Southeast Asia, but I do know that AD&D has used Southeast Asian monsters that have since translated into future editions of D&D. I know of a few. The Berbalang, that's Filipino. The Penanggalan is Malay.
Mm.
What
Oh.
else? I know a few. I can't quite put a finger on it right now.
I love how they.
And
Oh, go ahead.
and some of them showed up in the Oriental Adventures third edition. Like I'm pretty sure the Penanggalan shows up in Oriental Adventures 3E.
We'll have to find that. I'm just reading about pirates right now, and I'm just like, oh yes, all pirates are lawful evil.
Oh, the Waco, I think is what they're called.
Yeah, the Waco or Waco. It's interesting that they took pirates and they're like, okay, they're all lawful evil, and they're constantly doing terrible shit.
Is that the one in Under Men?
Yeah, it's under
Yeah.
men.
It's the only one under minute, I think.
Sea
Yeah.
Pirates.
Seems like it. It's just hard to tell the hierarchy of fonts here. There's another one that there's Oni. Of course you're gonna have Oni because this is fantasy Japan, right?
What threw me off was the Hainu. Scrolling up for a second.
Scroll
Because-
up. I knew.
I'm scrolling up.
Oh, okay.
Just because the name made me pause, and I was like, it's not supposed to be the Ainu, is it?
No, it would. No, it's definitely not. You know, okay. You know how we
I know.
you know how we're talking about. We talked about the Ainu on
Yeah.
the podcast. We did an episode, and then I brought them up again on the stream. And a lot of Japanese people are actually talking about Ainu issues now in Japan, as people are trying to talk about racism there.
I heard the prime minister came out and enforced a new law that made discrimination for being Ainu illegal.
Yup. But isn't that crazy that it took until 2020?
Yes.
It's absolutely
is.
insane.
Since we're back on the H part though, the Hainu, they're like water dwelling creatures that like attack ships. They're
The
like
society is
Asian mermaids, but the Husien, the lesser spirit is like what you get like is the Oriental like succubus. You get like the fox girl, the sexy fox girl who like can
Oh,
enchant
no.
you.
Oh no.
I was like,
no.
because we were kind of like looking for these. I was looking for this one of like that idea of like the temptress type thing because it's a
Mhm.
very common like horror scary trope, women as deceivers. And you can read through this and there's not a whole lot in it that would be surprising if you already have the mindset of like, oh, it is the trope of the woman temptress,
Mm-hmm.
blah 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 blah. The thing that really kind of makes it kind of weird for me is that it explicitly says that this Asian succubus is very susceptible to alcohol. Just like they love wine, and once they get drunk, they revert back to their fox form, and that's like got them. Which
I was really excited by Fox too. I was like, oh, finally.
Oh yeah,
But-
it's fox. Does it have its own section or is it just an animal?
Oh no, I meant the Husien.
Oh, okay, the
The
actual
Husien
fox.
are a race of shapeshifting foxes.
Yep.
I mean, foxes are big in Asian cultures. Like the
Absolutely.
nine tail fox is from China.
and they're
Does it
trickster.
have a
Kitsune
25
notably.
comeliness?
It has 25 comeliness.
Wait, where does it say that?
When appearing in human form, its 25 comeliness gives it the power of fascination. Wow, that's a high number.
Oh shit!
About halfway through the second paragraph.
18 charisma, 25 comeliness.
Pretty sure, according to the rules, that can make someone gay. Like, ooh,
No,
you could
Steve, it's
force
fine.
that.
There aren't any female adventurers in AD&D anyway. So
Oh,
Oof.
Oh, they're all he.
they're
him.
all he.
25 comeliness.
I have to look it up. 25 comeliness. It is the far end of stunning beauty, similar to, but people will actually flock around them.
Yeah, I want to
Jess
go
says
back
the
to the.
Husien is a Korean gumio. Question
Oh,
mark.
okay.
I
They-
think-
Gosh.
I think they're asking.
unsure. Honestly, unsure.
hmm
I just want to see what you could do with 25 comeliness.
This is actually the first time I've seen a 25 stat in an AD&D or in an AD&D anything. Usually it's like 18 and then 18 and then a percentile numerical equivalent.
So
They
with
really wanted to make sure that you get horny off this one. They're like, yeah, this monster right here, you got it. Here it is.
Like imagine the most attractive person ever. That's this person. That's this monster.
People will flock around them, like Steve said, and generally behave foolishly or outrageously to attract their attention. The reaction adjustment is twice the comeliness score, so it would be a 50% in this case. Anyone whose wisdom score is less than 2/3 of the character's comeliness score is smitten as above, which would be the 18 to 21. If an individual of the opposite sex is purposefully sought by a character with a comeliness of 22 to 25, that person is smitten unless his wisdom score is 18 or more. Rejection has the same effect as above.
So you need to be wise.
I could just see. Yeah, you need to be wise of this Asian temptress, is what they're basically saying.
Just get her drunk. That's what the rules say. Just
That's
get her
what
drunk.
the rules say.
Fine.
This is bad if you think about it.
Yeah.
The intoxication in Asians has like a long history of like microaggressions, which are very personal to me. And that there have been many times where people were like, I'm gonna beat this guy in a drinking contest. But let me tell you that just because I can get flush, I carry a lot of muscle, and that muscle helps me work the alcohol through my body a lot slower as it gets to my brain. So don't challenge me to a drinking contest, is what I'm saying. Don't challenge muscular people to drinking contests. You'll probably lose.
There we go. It's Steve's tip. And then takes a sip. What are you drinking, by the way, this stream?
This stream, I'm drinking this blended whiskey, which is surprisingly hard to find the LCBO, but the LCBOs that do carry, LCBOs are our local provincial liquor board. So it's called Flat Nose. It is a German style kind of like Scotch here, whiskey blend. The stores that do carry it, they don't sell it very well, which is weird. They collect dust, but I'm like, it's one of my favorites. It is like a hidden treasure that people have not caught and wise to yet. So Flat Nose, that is they don't pay me. I'm just saying I like it a lot.
We should get an Asian like liquor or beer sponsor.
Don't get Motai.
Whoa.
Motai is strong and scary.
No. You know, I've shared my stories about drinking in Asia. I don't need to share that again. But let's get moving. Or should I go into the other thing that I prepared? That
you had another thing prepared?
Yeah, I did, because I noticed. So I'm just scrolling down, and so everything here is pretty generic. The one thing here that go ahead, Steve.
That is, I think, a really powerful thing to say that I don't want to like glance over. For a book that has exotified and like written the people to be so savage and so violent and so like in need of saving, these monsters suck.
They suck. This section, I'm just looking.
Do.
I realized that they didn't actually include all of the stuff that they listed in these tables, because they're like, well, you should have a monster manual, a fiend folio, monster manual 2, and legends and lore in order to use these.
Yeah. The
Yeti isn't even here.
The thing that makes me upset is that so you have already you've separated between people like humans, like people, and monsters. That is clear separation. Monsters are things that you kill, right? In this book, the monsters are kind of boring, right? So the embodiment of evil, there's only one other piece of that like picture, and the thing that is evil here is the people. They are the people that you want to kill. They are the people that house really like the evil and stuff. That is where the white person's story needs to be, not in these Asian monsters, but in the Asian people.
In the people. That's a really insightful.
That is
observation.
And Steve isn't wrong in Swords of the Daimyo. The first people you are designed to fight are like before you get to Kazakura, which is an island like off the coast of Karator. The first people you have to fight are the Wano, who are human pirates,
Right.
and then when you get onto Kazakura, you fight raiders, human raiders, who have been sent to attack a village. Everybody else is the DM's discretion. So if the DM wants to throw one of these things at you, it's their choice.
So it's always people.
So far, I have the third part left to do, which I've seen art for, and it's not all human, but
Yeah,
We
and I
gotta-
mean, like you
And I
go.
think-
Sorry, go
and I
ahead.
think
Go,
I could-
BG.
I would agree with that also because I have the feed folio here. I have the monster manual here. It's not like AD&D has a shortage of interesting monsters. They can write good monsters. It's just that in here they chose not to. They didn't even bother with pictures.
They didn't even
Yeah.
put the foo dog, like the imperial lion, the imperial dog, in this
Uh,
book. It's in another book.
yeah, no, I think that's exactly the problem though.
It's lazy.
Gygax, no, I think Gygax went through and was like, okay, we've pulled out all the interesting monsters from Asia. What's left? So you have like the foo dog, the foo lion, the chillin. Half the dragons are in here.
Yeah.
We get 2 new ones. You get Wanti,
There's a Kenku.
yeah, the Rakshasa.
The Rakshasa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
There's not a lot of
so-
South Asian stuff otherwise.
Mhm. So I genuinely like reading this and looking at this list. It feels like Gygax was just looking at what was left, and was like, "Well, these are the only other interesting things I can find."
Well, it's interesting because they didn't even include something like the Jiangxi would be so cool.
Yep, we'll see it in 3.5 or 3x.
Yeah, it's
We
gonna
will
have
see
that.
It'll be called the hopping vampire,
Mhm.
which is super bizarre to me
Hopping vampire.
because
Well,
like,
they do hop
why-
though.
They do hop, and like that's like a totally valid way to describe them. It's just like they gave a whole bunch of other monsters their like non-Western name,
Yeah.
except for the hopping vampire. It's like why?
Well, because I think people wouldn't understand that they're vampires then because they don't suck blood. They drain chi. I think that's why. Also, like, let's talk about Jiangxi. Shaman King's coming back in 2021.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, I heard about that.
So is it like a brand new story? Or are they doing a remake?
I think it's
They're giving it the Brotherhood treatment. So like,
Oh.
it's Brotherhood.
That would be really cool. That's a really good direction, I think, when you want to take like an old anime that obviously wasn't perfect in the time because there's a lot of factors going on, and then just like giving it like the treatment that you wanted to as a creator.
modern animation on those action scenes. Holy cow. Also, the first time I ever saw anything I knew was in Shaman King.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, the
Horo.
surfer guy.
Yeah,
Right?
snowboarder.
Snowboarder, right?
Because northern Japan. So I prepared because I knew this was a short section, and I knew the generally we'd be either like this is like really offensive or this is just generally really boring. So I prepared one that I thought was really cool. So I wrote about this on my Patreon, and it's my favorite thing in Chinese art, Chinese mythology, Chinese folklore. I love it so much. It's actually on my business card. And it's this, the Tao Tie. Now, the Tao Tie is really interesting. I've only picked one. This is not as old as the dragon or the shell dragon or the shell tiger or the pig dragon. This is actually, this is from the start of Chinese dynasties. This is around like 1600 BCE. So we're looking at close to 4,000 years old, but so not as old as the dragons. So this is a bronze vessel, and this is a decorative motif that you can actually find on most bronze for the Shang and the Zhou dynasty. So you go to a museum that has Chinese stuff, you will see this on something made of bronze. Guaranteed. It's like a universal feature. And what's really interesting about them is the Tao Tie are almost like the prototype for later classical Chinese monsters. So if you're looking at the one that's on the screen, it bears a resemblance to some of the features of the Qilin. It bears a lot of resemblance to some of the features of Oni. It also bears resemblance to some features of the Imperial Lion. And that's why the Tautia is so cool, because it was on everything made of bronze. And it didn't have a particular characteristic. Some people call them monster masks as their translation. I've heard Chinese scholars call them ogre faces. So if I were to do an ogre in D&D, it would be like a Tautia, but maybe quadrupedal, maybe not. They took on different forms. And what's cool is that no one Tautia looks the same. They often had horns. They always had huge bulging eyes that would actually bulge out of the bronze. But they would also have, sometimes their faces were actually made of two animals combined, two birds. So there's so much narrative material in there. Imagine a monster that was literally two birds put together and it came apart. Or imagine a terrifying creature that was literally the gods mashing together things that were understood by humanity in order to test them. And the creation of the Tautia. But the Tautia are generally creatures that are beyond the borders of dynastic China. Things that could kill you in the shadows. They're so unknown that they don't have a real form, which is neat. The only time I've seen Tautia in media is that really bad movie, The Great Wall.
I was just about to say, that's why they built the wall, right?
And that's why they built the wall. And that's the only time I've ever seen a Tautia in, like, mainstream media. But this would be so fucking cool in D&D. And it's very well known. Very well known. It would not have been hard to find information on that. But yeah, they didn't put that in here. Hate that.
They didn't put a lot of things that I hope that they would put. Like,
I hate the Great Wall.
I hate the Great Wall too. Although I do love the costumes, that Power Ranger vibe.
Yeah, the color story is great.
Mm-hmm.
The story is garbo.
Yep, terrible, absolutely terrible, and those accents, and those accents. So, our general consensus is that the monster section is not the worst thing in this book. It's definitely not the most exciting.
mm-hmm.
It's not the most bland, because the encounter section was the blandest.
I think this section, without meaning to, reinforced the harm in a way that I wasn't expecting, and I feel like a lot of tension and friction around it. And like I talked that, you know, this section is boring. That is I think we are all on the same page there.
Mm-hmm.
But by making the monsters boring, you've really put the evil on
Absolutely.
the people. And like that makes me very, very uncomfortable. And I 100% don't think that Gary Gygax is like, oh yeah, here's how I'm gonna like get people to kill Asians. No, that didn't happen.
No.
But what I do think happened was that Gary Gygax saw that the tension that would be most meaningful to like his players would be the combat of Western white people against Asian people. That's the story that he wanted to tell, and it shows because the monsters are so boring.
Yeah,
I think to reinforce that point also, other than the goblin things, a lot of these are higher level monsters. They're in the high single digits to 10, 11 higher HD.
they're designed to be boss fights. When you fight your way through all the people, then you have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how I interpret it.
Yeah, they're the narrative dragons, literally. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total
The
sense.
lesser spirit has 5 hit dice.
That's a lot.
Maybe I would frame it as like the power fantasy here. Like that's another way of saying the same thing. The power fantasy in a traditional D&D game is the people go and they kill the savages, which are goblins and things like that, and they take their stuff. In an Oriental Adventures game, the power fantasy is very clearly overpowering Asian people.
Yeah, it's a way of othering the East and othering the people of the East. Whereas in the West, the things you don't have to worry about the people because they are civilized. There are evil people, but in general, the people aren't necessarily going to you don't have to watch your back wherever you go. But there are monstrous entities that come from the gods trying to corrupt us and people being corrupted by the gods, because the evils of the West aren't actually the result of humanity. It's the result of the intervention of supernatural forces or people tampering with the supernatural, the gods, creating monsters, or even if you look in like Greek mythology or Roman mythology, like Arachne in the Metamorphosis, like the creation of Arachne and the spiders. That's the hubris of humanity. But if you go to Asia and they say, okay, well, the scary parts of the West are, the things where the gods have intervened on our peace. But in Asia, the scary thing, like you said, Steve, are the people, right? They are different. They are the other. And how do we do that? Well, we'll make the people the enemy. We'll kind of flip things around. That will be different. That will be exotic, right? And so that puts the players who are either playing as Asian stereotypes or as Western heroes in a state where they cannot trust anybody. Don't like that. But we have about half an hour left. I suggest... Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, the last page of the monster section has one piece of art that's supposed to be, I think, a Tengu.
Yep.
And what's interesting, I was actually looking at the blob, the thing for it, and they didn't make the Tengu demons, which they are. They're yokai.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, they made them bird-like humanoid creatures that got pushed out of settled land by humans.
I wonder why they did that. Because, they are very clearly yokai.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because they wanted them to be playable races. I don't know. On the note of yokai, how do they not just fill this with really interesting Japanese yokai? Like, how do they not do that?
You could have done anything with a yokai, too. You could have been like a living sword.
Yeah. Futakuchi Onna is my favorite one. It's the one with the person has a mouth on the back of their head, and their hair feeds their head. Terrifying. But no, there's the Tengu, which is not considered a yokai here, and then there's the Kappa, and I guess there's the Oni.
Yeah, and that's it. Really.
Yeah. Ugh.
And the Kappa, again, raised of amphibious humanoid creatures.
Yeah, so you could play a Kappa. How do we feel? So this is just producer Daniel speaking. How do we feel about moving on to treasure and magical items while we have time?
Sure.
I'm cool with it.
Because
I was reading a little bit ahead during this, and there's a lot we can skip because it's kind of boring.
Crunchy.
It's crunchy and it's boring.
Hey, look, Boots of Elven Kind. Sorry.
Great.
They could have just said Boots of Tengu Kind.
Why don't we dive into it then?
Tengoots.
So if we start on page 129, we get to treasure and magical items, and I'll read the first paragraph here, and then we can kind of start picking and choosing, skipping over the crunchy stuff here. Treasure and magical items. One of the goals of any character is to accumulate treasure, and those of the Oriental world are no different. Money and magic is power, the power to influence destiny and the power to influence others. The treasure characters find gives them access to this power, although how they choose to use it is another matter. The information in this section supplements the information given in the DMG. Most of the magic items presented there can be found in the world of the Orient. What is given here are magical items peculiar to the Oriental world and the necessary tables information to integrate them into a campaign. And then the next table here shows you if an item requires a class. If you are a samurai, then you can use things that fighter could use, and it just kind of goes through that.
Yeah, it's
I think it's the other way around.
Chapter. Yeah, if you're a samurai, your items usable by a fighter would be the ones you could use.
I see.
Oh yeah.
I also love how they're like, yep, Asian people also love treasure and money, and that's what power is to them.
Yeah.
Also, in many ways, false.
There was I was going back to the preface section. I go back to the preface a lot because I feel like it frames up a lot of the intent here. And one of the lines directly from Gygax was he hoped the players would see the similarities of Oriental people with the Occidental people so that to highlight their differences. And even the similarity here that he's drawing is explicitly the want to kill people and take their stuff and get more powerful so you can do it more efficiently. And like even that similarity is like I thought you meant that like people just like singing or people like enjoy like drinking. No, the similarity here was colonialism. Thanks.
Hold up. I just hold up. I just saw something and I was like, what the cool. There's like a
Take your time. Take your time. This is a lot.
there's just this note that's really stupid. There's a modification to standard magical items, right? Although the majority of the magical items presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide are available throughout the world of the Orient, which from like a archaeological, historical, anthropological perspective would imply that there is trade.
Mm-hmm.
That means that there is trade. There are some that are particularly Occidental. They don't list which ones are. Now, if you skip past that and you go to the next paragraph, it says the items given in the DMG are generally Occidental in form and function. For example, a lyre is a known musical instrument in the Occidental lands. However, in the Orient, the same item may take the form of a samisen or flute. I don't know why they picked flute. Because a samisen is a string instrument. They could have picked like an erhu or anything like that, but they picked a flute. Otherwise, a cloak might become a robe or jacket.
Things you can't find in Faerun.
Yeah.
It's
Do people from the West not have flutes?
exactly. That's what I was like, why flute? Of all instruments. At least they didn't say bamboo flute. At least they didn't say that. But yeah,
we may scroll down and see flute, bamboo.
Wait, are you serious? Is that a thing?
I don't know. I'm saying we might.
Oh, bless.
Yeah. The fact that a cloak might be something else in Asia is stupid. That's so dumb.
It's really stupid.
It would only be worse if it was like a cloak might be like a rice paddy hat. You never know.
It does the same function. It shields you. I do like how they said manual of golems is not found in Oriental land. I do like that because golems are a very they come from like Jewish folklore.
Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I like how they said no, this is not here. Which is cool.
But even then, the concept of a spirit infusing an object.
Oh yeah, you could have just picked any
that's
yokai.
Yeah, that's exactly what yokai are.
Yeah. So like yes, the golem
name.
as written doesn't exist, but all people have the idea that like normal objects can take on extra meaning based on the actions of people. Anyways,
let's move on. I'm just scrolling because some of this stuff is all rules. I'm on page 133 already. We're actually gonna finish this book next week. If we get through this section, we're gonna finish the book next week.
So there's one thing I wanted to highlight here. Actually, if you go back to page 131, it goes to the magical descriptors of armor. And I got really excited because there's one here.
131, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's called Possession. I was like very freaked out about it. But then I read the description. I thought it was really cool. Without going line by line through it, basically it says if a crafter puts enough of themselves into their craft, part of their soul becomes part of that object. And that object takes on like their qualities and things like that.
That's cool.
Cool. That's really cool. But in AD&D, when that happens, it's a bad thing. Because when you wear the armor, if you don't succeed a save, the armor takes over you. It possesses you. It's malevolent.
Ugh,
That
was like half cool.
It was.
I've seen that JoJo stand. I've seen that episode of JoJo.
They were so close to having something really cool, right? Just like an item where a human being out there in the world put so much effort and love and spirit into this that as someone who inherits it, you get a piece of that history, and that history has power, and that power like gives you it gives you power. But here, no, that power is used against you. This power hurts you. And I'm like, you're so close.
So close,
You're
Gary.
so close.
So close, Gary. Yet so far.
Moving on.
That reminds me that when I'm with my relatives and we talk about random items in the house that have been there for a while, it's always about some story of some distant relative who did something cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's I'm not sure if that's uniquely Asian though. I feel like that's something that anyone would talk about, like
Attachment,
random sword.
attachment and affiliation of items with people. It's
I do know that I do know that it's an animist thing for you to infuse an item with some of you or some part of you, like one of your souls,
Mhm.
so that part of your personality is imprinted into it, which I think is cool, and I think it works well with the general idea of the setting. But yeah, the whole part about possessing someone else after, that's
Yeah.
not as cool.
Super uncool. Gary, that was uncool.
What the hell, Gary?
Oh no. Page
Oh,
one,
no.
page 134. They actually made an Asian-sounding item, the Gong of Dispelling.
Amazing. Great.
This magical item is a large gong, 3 feet in diameter. When hung from a frame and struck, the gong has the effects of dispel evil and dispel magic on everything within 3-foot radius. I guess that's how it works here. The spells are equal in potency to those cast by a 15th level spellcaster. Each time the gong is sounded, 1 charge is used. The gong has
That's actually
a
an
D100.
inch. So
Inch.
It's 3
it's actually an
inches.
Oh, I
inch,
guess
so
the
that's
inch
three
is
squares.
3 squares. Yeah, so that's 15
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
In I guess 5th edition, 3rd edition. Why does it have to be a?
What does it have to be called?
Well,
You know the answer to that.
I know.
Yeah.
You know what they could have used? They could have used a one thing that I purposefully put in our Dungeons and Asians, a Dungeons and Asians game, is a Ruyi. They are symbols of, They are symbols of like I just put it on the screen now. Symbols of power.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Those look cool.
yeah, they're super neat. Super neat. Kiana's character, Josha, has these and all over her quarters. They're really neat. This is probably the best one. Is like this one
So-
here is pretty cool.
I tried to look up the minyan. The large item is a portable shrine devoted to a particular deity. The only thing I can find is a Jewish quorum.
Oh no.
Oh.
Oh, come on. Page 135. Paper of forms. This magical colored paper can be used by those with origami proficiency.
Oh. Amazing.
That's a shirt. That's a shirt. It's just paper of forms.
Paper of forms. You know, I with all the talk of the celestial bureaucracy, I thought of a very different form.
I do too.
Not
I was like,
origami, but more like file these forms.
Oh man.
my brain jumped to like Shaman King. You know, you had or like the Jiangxi, where you get like the paper, like the exorcism paper, or like paper like to protect people.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna be like a Sailor Mars, like.
But instead, we get. I mean, nope. Yeah, the origami turns into things. So
Does it animate?
It does animate.
Yes.
You blow on it and speed
Blow
command
on
word.
it. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Of all the things that they could have done, they instead put paper of forms. We should definitely make a shirt out of that.
I can't help but think that this was the Oriental version of a golem. They were like, we need something. We need a construct in here, right? How are we gonna make it Asian?
This is like wait, let me just I haven't actually Yes, okay. This is like those they're in 3rd edition. I don't know if they're in AD&D, but they're those objects of power. So
Yeah.
one of them, the fly turns into a griffin, or like in the R.A. Salvatore books, his little obsidian onyx statue turns into a panther.
Mhm.
Guinevere. That's what this is.
Except it's made of paper. and
Except it's made of paper.
It's made of paper, which, like, if I had to choose between a paper panther and a real life panther, one of these is clearly like better. Anyways,
Unless it's like indestructible paper, or it's like
You
razor
can turn
sharp.
it into a house.
Oh,
it's
and you get
apparently
a
indistinguishable.
and you get a
from an
D4
Oriental.
sheet. Oh, of course, because all houses are made of paper in the Orient. You find a D4 sheets of paper. What is this bullshit? Oh,
Get found there.
What's really cool though is actually once it gets used to turn into something, it can only turn back into that one thing.
Yeah.
oh,
yeah, it's
So you-
fixed.
Because you folded it.
Because you
already.
folded it, you made all the creases.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh wait, unless you unfold it.
Oh, there's another one. Wondrous writing set. This magical writing set comes with.
I was
It comes in a
looking at
lacquered
that.
box. It contains a brush, inking stone, and inkwell with ink. First of all, the inking stone is okay. Gygax, come on. When used for writing, the set improves the character's calligraphy proficiency. Oh, come on. By -2. Furthermore, if the character has a is it a by 2 or a by
That's
-2?
a +2.
Is it a plus? On my PDF, it looks like a minus.
That's because AD&D is in reverse.
It's lower,
Oh,
right? Like that.
yeah.
That's what. Yeah, it's -2. Furthermore, if the character has a sample of another person's handwriting, he can create a perfect forgery of that person's handwriting, providing he makes the successful calligraphy. They're basically saying that calligraphy and handwriting are the exact same thing.
Yep.
Why, Gary?
This has a similar feel of like the last section where it's like there's a couple of things maybe are cool, most of it hurts, a lot of it is just boring.
A lot of it's boring. Some of it's just like, you honestly went there?
Maybe what I can do is going back to Graham Panzerlion's article on decolonizing magic.
Yeah.
The idea that you have these people of Asians who obviously have magic. This is like what the fiction is. Their magic sucks. Like this, these suck, right? You when and then you compare it to like other ways to dispel magic, like
You ring a gong.
like if you're in the Orient, you have to like bring a gong,
A
like,
big
that
gong.
sucks.
It's not just a tiny little one. It's a big ass gong.
It just is like it's inefficient.
Well, no, because
right?
you know Gygax wants that visual of the like Gygax wants that visual.
Yeah. Whereas like in like a normal D&D game, you would just dispel magic, right? Like it's inefficient, and by that inefficiency, what it does is it puts in the game, it codifies in the game that Western people are more powerful, more civilized, better organized, more efficient than everyone else.
Yeah,
that
because their magic items are here, so why use the Oriental ones?
Exactly.
And not just that, some of them are just outright clumsy.
No!
Like,
Gary, you son of a bitch.
What did you find this time?
Page,
That
page 134. Ever producing rice mortar.
Oh no!
how did I miss that?
Now we know where the Sohei gets all the rice from.
Oh, we solved the mystery.
No!
Everyone, we solved the mystery.
This oh my god.
This
This-
magical
this-
item appears to. Yeah.
Oh.
But 20% of the time, it gives you extraordinary rice.
Yeah, BJ, why don't you go ahead and read us?
Read it out loud.
This is great.
Right. This magical item appears to be a normal rice mortar in Mallet. There is an 80% chance the rice mortar is of the common type and a 20% chance that it is extraordinary. In either case, the magic of the ever-producing rice mortar is activated by turning the mallet in the mortar one direction and deactivated by turning it in the other direction. Okay, so moving it around.
Yeah.
Once per day, the common rice mortar can be activated to produce any type of food or drink for 1d100 people as desired. That's a lot of people.
Whoa.
The food spews from the mortar hot and fresh: rice, buns, sake, candles, tea, salt, etc. The food is normal in all respects. The extraordinary rice mortar has all the powers of the common rice mortar. In addition, it can also be used to grant 1d4 wishes. Oh.
What the fuck? This is, first of all, this is the Cornucopia of Plenty from 3rd edition.
Mhm.
This is the
wanna
Cornucopia of
know-
Plenty from 3rd edition. Wait, this
I wanna know-
is first of all, how do you, Gary, do you know how to make rice?
I really want to know if the ever producing rice mortar can make Western food. Or is it exclusive just Eastern?
This
food?
is okay. He said food and drink for a D100 people, and this is how Asian people feed people: rice, buns, sake, candies, tea, and just salt.
And salt.
What the actual fuck? That
What happened was Gygax only knows one spice. You have to remember.
Oh,
He only knows one seasoning.
it's not a spice.
Oh.
So I'm trying to look up like the Western component of this. So is it Horn of Plenty?
Cornucopia of Plenty, I think, is.
Cornucopia of Plenty. Okay.
I know. I very vividly remember. Oops. I very vividly remember.
It's in 5th edition. I know that because I can.
Yeah, there it is.
So I do want
Horn of Plenty, I think, is what they're calling it now.
Don't they have great food and water for the
Cornucopia of
casters?
Plenty is in Pathfinder.
Okay. So Horn of Plenty maybe.
Bush. It's explicitly not taste. It does not taste good.
I just really want to see what like the normal.
This
Magic
is literally a genie's magic lamp
Plus food.
plus food. It's a good deal.
No, the genie magic lamp is the gem of wishes right below it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
1 to 4 wishes. The gem itself has a value.
Why?
Why did they even make a gem of wishes?
Yeah,
it's,
why you have an ever producing rice mortar?
But
Fuck
it's clearly
you, Gary
the superior
Gygax.
item.
I don't even know why you need the 1d4 wishes. Like all my wishes are there already. It gives me food every day.
1D100 is also a lot. That's a lot of people.
Well,
The weird thing is
you
it says-
get a 1 rice. You get a 1 rice up to 100 rice. What is the unit of measurement for rice? Is it grains? Is it bags?
one bowl.
This is so upsetting.
There's-
I don't think
there's
I've
nothing
ever.
to come with the rice.
I
It's
don't
just
think I've
rice.
ever been this tilted by Oriental Adventures. Like I've been very offended, but this is just bad.
I don't know why they called it ever producing rice mortar when it can make more than just rice.
I think it's trying to mimic like the ever producing like porridge bowl. That's like an old D&D thing. Like it's a bowl of porridge, and if you like put the spoon in it, it like makes porridge for you that tastes like wet cardboard.
Why
is
did
it
they
a
just
mortar?
call it what?
I don't know why it's a mortar. I think
What-
it's because Gary he put his foot in his mouth.
Also, does he think they eat rice all over Asia? Because they don't.
I
You
mean,
know
we
that's what he
already know that because of the Sohei. Let's not forget that instead of rations, and I learned this in Swords of the Daimyo, instead of rations, you get a week of rice cakes.
Rice cakes.
Rice cakes.
Yes.
Okay.
Fuck.
I did my rice rant last time, so
Yeah, I've
I'm done with it.
I'm done ranting about rice. I just. This is
So here's what I'm going to say about this. From what I can tell, this feeds a lot more people than like what its Western counterpart would be. That is interesting because it implies that within the fiction, they needed a magic item to feed more people, which basically tells you that Asia has an overpopulation problem, right? Like basically there's a lot
Yeah,
more people who need to be fed because they're poor.
yeah.
That's like that 1D100. That's what that's telling me, and that's obviously a problem. 2, It doesn't. So in Western, in the Western counterpart, it just
then why sake and candy?
oh, so the Western counterpart was like porridge, right? So porridge was like the one thing that would sustain the people,
Yeah.
and you could like pretend like roughing it, like, oh, it's just porridge, it's gonna get us through. But even here, we have 1D100 people being fed with booze, rice, candies,
Carbs, sugar, and booze.
yeah, and that tells you more about just like not one thing here. Like in a vacuum, everything here written is like, it is what it is. But together, I'm being painted a picture, and I'm seeing more of how Gygax viewed what these people within the fiction would want.
Mm-hmm.
And that is painting this picture of this person these people who generally are poor, generally are overpopulous. They have a lot of children, and they love their candies and their booze. And yep, I'm good.
Look, I'll eat rice every day. I'll be serious with you. I'll eat rice every day.
Someone in chat made a good question. Just, can you make sushi? How complex is the food you can make?
I don't know. I don't know if you actually do. You get onigiri?
But you don't get any viands here. You can't get fish. There's no fish in the.
Well, the etc. I think it's implied with the
etc.
Oh, the etc.
How far can you go with this?
It says any type of food or drink.
You know, seeing ever producing rice mortar and seeing what was it paper of forms and wondrous writing set. I'm surprised they didn't do endless noodle. And it just constantly grows.
It's like one noodle.
It's just one noodle, and it's just hanging, and you just keep cutting from this noodle, and you just feed yourself with it. I am so surprised they didn't put something like that stupid in this book.
I kind of love that idea.
I do too.
I kind of love that.
And the noodle ends up being some sort of monster, and you're actually feeding on the flesh of a monster.
It's like Adventure Time with Meat Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? I don't think I'm gonna eat from Meat Man anymore. I'm not gonna eat Meat Man's meat anymore. It makes me feel kind of weird now.
Andrea said Tangela from Pokemon.
Another one of the items that I thought was really bad was the Mallet of Luck, because, I mean, I love Jackie Chan. He's one of my favorite actors, but he gets stuck in like these slapstick comedy roles whenever Hollywood casts him for anything, and the Mallet of Luck does exactly that.
Well, to defend Jackie, a part of the character, the reason why he plays a lot of those characters is very intentional on his part, so that he isn't portrayed like Bruce Lee.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Because, well, if you look at Bruce Lee's characters and you look at Jackie Chan's characters, they're like the opposite. Bruce Lee is like stoic, heroic, and the way he fights is also, Bruce Lee is a badass, but the way he fights is very different from Jackie Chan's fighting style. So where Bruce Lee plays like the folk hero character, Jackie Chan plays the average Joe, who just happens to know how to fight and improvises. So, not to like undermine your comment, but Jackie Chan's portrayals of himself are intentional.
And I do love Jackie Chan, and I love everything he's in. Like, Kung Fu Panda is one of my favorite animated movies.
It's a great movie.
My issue is when those are like the only two things Asian people can be in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And the Mallet of Luck leans into one direction where it says, devised by a particularly warped imagination, the mallet bestows a bonus of +2 on all to hit and saving throw rolls. The bonus lasts for 6 hours. However, it is necessary to strike the recipient forcibly with the mallet to bestow the bonus. The blow unfortunately causes 2d6 points of damage. Multiple blows do not have a cumulative effect, although the specified amount of damage is still done. Note that this item can be used in combat if the wielder does not mind giving his opponent the bonus. It reads as slapstick.
Yep. Bang, 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 bang.
2d6 is a lot of damage for AD&D.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna hurt.
It's not like 5e where you just like continuously like get like more and more spongy with damage. Like you're always kind of fragile in AD&D.
Yeah. Talk about 3e fireball. Woo.
Yeah. Woo. I know we're running out of time, but man, there's so much to talk about Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. I love Bruce Lee. I think I said on Twitter one time, someone was like, when was the first time like you felt like you understood that being Asian was like different, but like not different in a bad way? And mine was like seeing Bruce Lee on film. Like that was my first like, wow, I could be different and it's not bad. And And Dan, to your point, Bruce Lee's characters were all stoic when they fought and very like technical and very like they had like this like calm fury about them.
Yep.
But outside of fighting, all of his characters are naive and foolish.
Very easily manipulated in many ways. Yeah.
And I think towards the end of his career, if you look at the footage of like Game of Death, which unfortunately he passed away while filming, his character is not that at all. His character makes jokes while fighting and like teases them and like is sarcastic and smiles. And it was very clear that Bruce had, to me, that's how I read it, was trying to break out of the old mold he put in himself. And to me, I see that and I feel it because Asian people putting molds around themselves is a tool, is a form of self-preservation to live in a world where I spoke about this, last Saturday, where white supremacy provides power. And by putting a mold around yourself and putting you like as a model minority, you can put yourself more adjacent towards white supremacy, put yourself more adjacent to being white, put yourself in a box. Maybe you'll get ahead. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You know what's funny about Jackie Chan's movies? A lot of his movies, all the villains are white. All the villains are white if you think about it. I don't know if that's intentional or not. It's interesting when you say like people fitting themselves into like being typecasted and all that. Jackie, like Ken and I were chatting in the Twitch chat about some of Jackie Chan's more serious movies. One of them is the Shinjuku incident, which is super good. And another is called New Police Story. And it was kind of a revival of the Police Story series that he was on. If you've never seen Police Story 1, the mall fight scene is fucking phenomenal. Some of the best acting.
I think it's on Netflix.
Is it?
The New Police Story?
No, Police Story 1? If it is, I'm watching it tonight because that movie's great. Got it on DVD. But one of my favorite Jackie Chan fight scenes of all time, and in this slapstick style, is actually in Police Story 4, which was released in North America as Jackie Chan's First Strike. And he goes to Australia, and there's a fight scene in an aquarium, and he's fighting with this other guy, and they get all these sea urchins attached to them, and they're all just like paralyzed, and they're all got the venom in them. And he does a fight scene inside a shark tank.
Sorry, I was thinking of Young Tiger.
There's a fight scene in a shark tank. But yeah, Ting just said Jackie Chan's dramatic roles are definitely super underrated. In Police Story, New Police Story, he plays a cop who is an alcoholic and has PTSD. Super good. But anyways, we are running out of time. We could talk about movies a lot, but what I think we should do is actually do a Netflix party. I keep talking about this, and I think we actually should. We'll find a movie. A part of me is like, we should. You know what's on Canadian Netflix now? The Initial D movie, the live-action Initial D movie. But
I think New Karate Kid with Jackie Chan as Mr. Miyagi is also on there.
And
Mr. Miyagi is a very powerful character for a lot of reasons.
I think he's called Mr. Lee in that movie.
I believe he is Mr. Lee. Yeah.
And that Justin Bieber song at the end.
Fuck, I forgot about that. Okay, well. Not every movie's perfect.
Oh, The Foreigner. The Foreigner was another good one. That one's on Netflix too. He fights against the IRA in that one. And Cho Chang plays his daughter. Fuck J.K. Rowling, by the way. Yeah. Anyways, socials for BJ, Peter, myself, and Steve are all on the screen in front of you. Oh, wow. Peter, you're just like...
On the ball.
with Nightbot. Follow everyone who's here. If y'all have anything that you want to talk about, things that you're working on, if things that you want to share, now's the time. What are you working on? Peter, are you doing anything? What your readings?
Yeah, I do Twitch streams every day. 11 to 3 CST. I'm attempting to work up the energy to work on some games, but that's slow going and very far in the future.
Totally understandable. And you're also doing a read-through of Swords of the Daimyo on your Twitch channel.
Mondays I do whatever I want, but right now it's just reading through and doing my own version of Asians Read.
Because more people should be doing this. BJ, what do you have going on? Steve shared Buku Juice, your itch page.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I do deep dives on Filipino and Southeast Asian myths for adaptation into tabletop RPGs. I'm especially fond of statting monsters, dissecting monsters, doing stuff with monsters in general. I'm currently one of the researchers slash writers for the Islands of Sinauna. It is a 5th edition setting inspired by pre-colonial Filipino cultures. And I am mostly an OSR slash sword dream guy, so you can find me lurking in those spaces. Yeah, that's it.
Noise. How about you, Steve? You best-selling author.
Oh yeah, so I just happen to be a best-selling author of the
I want one. I want to buy one soon.
I'm so happy we got to give them away.
I know.
For our Black Lives Matter stream.
That was really meaningful. I felt really, really good about that. It was exhausting, but this, I haven't gone reading cover to cover, but thanks for putting that picture up, by the way.
You're welcome.
With me in cargo shorts. But
I got you.
There's so much good content in here. And the thing that really surprised me was that I knew that it would be written really well, but what I didn't realize is just how much effort was put into designing an experience for the game master and for other groups that was so empathetic. There was so much empathy and feeling and spirit put into the words. Definitely check out that stream, which is on our YouTube page, youtube.com/AZNS represent. Super, super cool. And I cannot wait to dive into the rest of this stuff. But as far as what I'm working on, all I've done since the stream started is I've been holding my breath, waiting for the Al-Qadim Asians read.
Can't wait.
That sounds
I'm
so good. And not enough people talk about Southwest Asia and kind of how it's represented in our games. So this, for me, will be such an educational, emotional experience. And I cannot wait.
I can't wait too. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Steve, if you just want to be in the Zoom call listening to it, I'll send you the link.
I'll be in Twitch chat so I can disrupt as much as possible.
Sounds good.
I'm a big old Twitch troll.
Yeah. Awesome. So I mean, I guess you could do that because I did put this picture up on the stream. I want everybody to see this amazing piece of art. And that look on your face is priceless.
My pecs look really good though.
They do look good. In terms of me, if you liked this stuff, if you're interested in Chinese monsters, I have a Patreon where I have now been writing about Chinese monsters, working on my own OSR Chinese monster manual. I post this strange actual play that I have with my family, where we play D&D. So that's patreon.com/Daniel H. Kwan. If you're interested in that stuff, I've posted 3 monsters, a Tautia and 2 types of monstrous horses. I actually posted those today. But thank you, folks, for coming along with us on this journey. Next week will be the conclusion. I'm pretty sure we can get through this.
Oh yeah.
Next week will be we're gonna get through this. Next week will be the conclusion of Asians Read Oriental Adventures. Tune into next week because those of you who join us for the stream will be the ones who get to vote on the book we read next. So we're gonna figure out how to do that. Will it be L5R? Will it be The Unapproachable East from 3rd edition? Will it be the 3rd edition Oriental Adventurers Handbook? It'll be up to you folks. So join us next Friday when we conclude Oriental Adventures AD&D, and next Saturday when we dive into it, not Steve and I, but our panel facilitated by Amar will dive into Al-Qadim. I can't wait for Al-Qadim. There are so many really cool people who are on this. I just can't wait to learn. It's going to be dope. It's
the most important thing happening on the internet that Saturday. So
definitely
don't miss the most important.
Definitely.
Sorry.
This Saturday or
next Saturday? The 20th.
Cool.
The 20th.
I'm watching that one.
8 days from now.
Yes. It's going to be
start the clock.
Countdown. So yeah, it's going to be dope. We'll see all of you there. Bye everyone.